The sky was red. The ground was black. Smoke covered the broken city like a blanket of death. Buildings stood like broken bones. Fires still burned in the ruins. Ray walked slowly through the ashes. He was a human soldier, tired, dirty, and alone. His armor was scratched. His face was hidden behind a cracked helmet. He moved carefully, scanning the area with his weapon. The war was over. The battle was won. But the silence scared him more than the guns. Ray hated this part. The aftermath. No orders, no enemies, just smoke. And sometimes survivors dot his boots crushed small pieces of glass as he walked. A soft wind blew past. It carried something strange, a sound, not a machine, not an alarm. A voice, faint. Shaking, he stopped. Help, someone, please. It was not in English. It was alien, but Ray's translator chip caught the meaning. His heart beat faster. Was it a trick? He moved toward the voice. Step by step, past burned metal and fallen walls. Then he saw her. A shape, hiding behind broken stone. Small, covered in gray dust. An alien woman, dark purple skin, thin body, eyes full of fear and pain. She held something in her arms, wrapped in a torn blanket. A baby. Ray raised his weapon without thinking. The alien gasped and backed away. No. Please don't hurt her. Her voice cracked. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for the small thing in her arms. Ray didn't shoot. He lowered the gun. The baby wasn't moving. She was so small, her eyes were closed. No sound. Number. Cry. She won't wake up. The alien whispered. I've tried everything. Please, human. Ray's mind raced. This was the enemy. Their species had attacked Earth. Millions died. His friends, his family, gone. But this wasn't war. This was a mother, crying, holding her child. He walked forward slowly, keeping his hands open. I'm not going to hurt you, he said. The woman didn't move. She just stared with wide, shaking eyes. I'm going to check the child, Ray said calmly. He knelt beside her and looked at the baby. The little body was cold, not dead, but weak. Very weak. Ray touched the baby's neck. There was a pulse. Slow, but there. She's alive, he said, but she needs help. Fast. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She nodded quickly. Ray looked around. No medics, no team. His radio was silent. No one was coming. Helping her would break every rule, but leaving her here would mean death. Ray looked at the mother again. What's your name, Thera? She whispered. My name is Thera. I'm Ray, he said. A short silence passed between them. She's all I have left, Thera said. My mate, he died protecting us. Aran, I hid. I kept her warm, but she hasn't moved for hours. Ray didn't speak. He understood her too well. He remembered carrying his own sister's body out of the ruins of New Chicago. No soldier should have to live through that. No mother should either. He took off his backpack and pulled out a small med kit. I can give her something, he said. It might help her wake up. Thera nodded. Her hands shook as she gently unwrapped the baby's face. Ray injected a small stim shot into the baby's tiny arm. Now they waited 1 minute. 2, 3, nothing. Ray felt something cold inside him. What if he was too late? A soft sound. The baby coughed. Her fingers moved. Her eyes opened. Little Thera gasped. Her mouth opened in shock and joy. She's alive. Ray stepped back, letting Thera hold her baby close. She cried, rocking gently. For a moment. The smoke didn't matter. The war didn't exist. Just a mother, her child. And a human then static in Ray's earpiece. His commander's voice, Unit 722. Report status. Any survivors? Ray looked. At Thera, she looked at him. He pressed the come button. No survivors, he said. He ended the call. Thera stared at him. Why did you lie? Ray stood up. Because sometimes, mercy is more important than orders. He reached out his hand. Come. With me, I'll keep you safe. Thera hesitated. Then placed her hand in his. They walked into the smoke together. Human and alien, both broken by war, but still choosing hope. Asterisk, long ago, they feared the humans. Not because humans were monsters, but because humans were too good at surviving, too fast to adapt, too hard to kill, too easy to make angry. In the dark corners of the galaxy, they told stories about Earth's fall. But they feared more the rise that came after. Now, one of those feared creatures, a human, stood in the middle of a ruined city, holding the life of his enemy in his hands. Ray, he wasn't a hero. He wasn't a leader. He was just tired. Tired of blood, tired of burning cities, tired of being the weapon next to him. Thera, the alien mother, sat quietly. Her small baby rested in her arms, alive but still weak. They were hiding inside a half-collapsed building. The walls were broken, the air full of dust. But for now, it was shelter. Ray knelt near a broken window. Watching the sky, drones circled above small black machines with red eyes. Searching, are they looking for us? Thera whispered. Ray didn't answer. He didn't want to lie. Yes, they were not for her. For him, he had broken orders. He had lied to command. He had helped the enemy. But in this moment, they didn't feel like enemies. He turned to look at Thera. Her head was bowed low, brushing her child's face. She hummed something soft, a lullaby in her language. Ray remembered something. A hospital. His little sister. A song his mother sang. That memory burned deeper than any laser. Your people hate us, Thera said suddenly. Ray blinked. You're not wrong. She looked up. Her eyes were large, full of sadness. But why help me? Ray didn't answer right away. He pulled off his helmet, let the cool air hit his face. He looked older than his age. War does that, he finally said, because when Earth burned, no one came to help us. Thera stared. I know what it feels like to lose everything, Ray continued. You think you hate the enemy until you see they're just like you. A parent, a survivor, trying to hold on. Thera wiped a tear from her cheek. I was taught humans were violent, she said. Ray chuckled dryly. We are, but not always. Silence settled between them again. A peaceful silence. Then a sharp beep in Ray's earpiece. He froze. A voice came through. Cold and clear. Unit 722. This is command. We detected heat signatures in Sector D9. That's your location. Confirm presence. Ray's blood turned to ice. They were scanning the area, looking for life signs. Don't speak, he told Thera quickly. She held the baby tighter. Ray tapped his communicator. Just old tech fires, sir. No life signs here. I'll confirm in person. Copy that, the voice replied. Send visual report in 5 minutes. Ray's hands shook. Visual report meant camera scan. They would see her. He stood quickly. We need to move. Now? Thera looked panicked. The baby, she's weak. I'll carry her, Ray said. She hesitated. She didn't want to give her child to anyone, not even to him. Ray looked her in the eye. Do you trust me? She looked down at her daughter, then back at Ray. She nodded once. Ray gently took the baby into his arms. She was light, too light. He placed her inside his chest armor. The inside was padded. Warm, stay close, he said. They moved through a hole in the back wall. Every step was careful. Every breath silent. They crawled through tunnels, jumped over rubble, and climbed under beams. Ray guided her to an old bunker, forgotten during the battle. As the door closed behind them, they heard a sharp sound in the distance. Dots, drones flying low. Ray pulled his weapon. His face changed, no longer soft, but sharp. Not scared, not angry. Ready? Thera saw it. That look, the look the galaxy feared. The look of a human willing to fight for someone else. Sometimes, it's not the enemy who hunts you. It's your own side, your own people, your own flag. Ray had saved them, the alien mother and her baby. But now, he had become a ghost in the eyes of the army. A traitor in the system. Still, he didn't regret it. Not when he looked down at the small bundle resting against his chest. The baby's tiny hand had curled against his armor, as if she trusted him. Outside, the sky had turned darker. Night was falling fast over the broken city. Inside the bunker, the silence was deep, but not peaceful. It was the silence before something bad. Ray worked quickly. He opened a dusty metal box, an old supply kit left behind in a forgotten war. Inside were food rations, 2 old batteries, and a broken field map. No med-supplies. He cursed under his breath. Thera sat in the corner, holding her knees. Her body shook. Not from cold, but fear. Is she safe? She asked. Ray checked the baby again, still breathing. Eyes closed. Pulse steady, but slow. She's hanging on, he said softly. Then a faint buzz in the air. Not from inside, from above. Ray stood quickly. He moved to the ceiling panel, pulled it open slightly, and looked through a narrow crack. Drones, 3 of them. Black, fast, deadly, scanning a red beam passed just above the bunker. Ray ducked back. They're close, he whispered. Thera's eyes widened. Will they find us? Ray nodded slowly. Eventually, a pause. Then what? She asked. Ray didn't answer because he didn't know. He had no orders. No backup, no extraction. Only a weak baby, a frightened mother, and a choice he couldn't undo. He touched the inside of his chest armor gently, feeling the rise and fall of the small, alien child. She was warm, alive. He remembered something from his training. Don't carry the enemy's burden. It'll make you weak. But this child didn't make him weak. She made him human again. Suddenly, a sharp sound. P-I-N-G. Ray's comlink blinked. A message from command. Unit 722. Final warning. Thermal scan shows unidentified movement. Near your signal. Confirm visual feed now or face disciplinary action. Ray's hands turned into fists. They were onto him. He had minutes, maybe less, before the drones came in. Or worse. Soldiers dropped down with guns ready. He turned. To Thera, we have to move again. She looked tired, exhausted. Her body couldn't take much more. But she stood up. Without question, that's what mothers do. Ray opened the bunker's back exit, a maintenance tunnel. Half collapsed, full of dust and pipes, as they stepped in too. The dark Ray paused. He pulled a flare from his belt, lit it. He tossed it into the corner of the bunker, far away from where they were headed. A trap, a false heat signature. Let's hope they fall for it, he muttered. They crawled through the tunnel. Every breath echoed. The baby stirred inside Ray's armor. A soft, weak whimper. Her tiny voice. Still alive, Ray smiled just a little. Then, a noise behind them. Footsteps, metal boots, soldiers. Ray looked back. A red beam lit the tunnel entrance. They'd found the bunker. And now they were following Ray. Turn to Thera. Run. I'll hold them off. She grabbed his arm. No, not without you. Ray stared. This alien, This so-called enemy was willing to fight for him now because he had saved her child. Ray nodded. Then we run together. They reached the end of the tunnel. A metal hatch. Ray kicked it open. The cold night air hit them like a wave. Above, stars, ahead ruins, but also a chance. They ran behind them. The tunnel lit up, bright red flashes. The sounds of weapons charging. They were being hunted, not by monsters, not by aliens, but by humans. Ray held the baby closer. Thera stayed at his side, and for the first time, Ray didn't care if the army called him a traitor because he knew the truth. Sometimes saving the enemy is what makes us worth saving. She had 4 fingers, small, soft, slightly purple, and they were wrapped tightly around the edge of Ray's glove. She didn't know what planet she was on. She didn't know what species he was. She didn't even know her own name. But in that moment, the alien baby trusted the human who carried her, and that broke something inside him. Ray had never held a baby before, not even a human one. But now, an alien child, fragile and quiet, was asleep against his chest. Wrapped in a scarf he tore from his own uniform, her mother Thera walked beside him, limping, tired, but never letting go of hope. They moved silently through the ruins of Sector 9. Above them, drones still searched. Behind them, soldiers followed. But ahead, there was a chance. A rumor Ray had heard once: an old evac ship, abandoned during the first wave of attacks. It might still work, maybe. Ray, Thera whispered, breaking the silence. He looked at her. If they catch us, what will they do to her? Ray didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't know, but because he did. She's not a threat, Thera said. She's a baby. Ray shook his head. To the army, she's alien blood. That's all they'll see. Thera looked down. Her eyes filled with pain. So we have to run forever. Ray stopped, looked at her, looked at the small child. Then he said, no, just long enough to get her out. They reached an old building, half buried under rubble. Inside, cold air, broken glass, shadows, but also safety. For now, Ray found a corner where the walls hadn't collapsed. He took off his gear, unstrapped the baby carefully. She was still, breathing, eyes closed. A little more color in her skin now. She's stronger, Thera said softly, kneeling beside her. Because of you. Ray didn't respond. He was staring at the baby, really looking. She's beautiful, he whispered. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small item, a round silver badge. Dusty and scratched. He held it out. What is that? Thera asked. It was my sister's, he said. T died when Earth fell. She was only 6. Thera gently touched the badge. I'm sorry. Ray smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. She used to believe people weren't born good or bad. She said, we're all just choices. Thera looked at him. You chose us. I chose her, Ray said, pointing at the child. Suddenly, a sharp sound. Footsteps. Voices. Not far. Ray stood up quickly. They're close. He grabbed his gear, picked up the baby, and scanned the room. Behind a wall panel, a maintenance tunnel, narrow but useful. This way, he whispered. They moved fast. As they crawled through the tunnel, the baby stirred. Her eyes opened. For the first time, slowly, just a little. She blinked. Ray felt it. A small hand touched his neck. Weak, but real. She's awake, Thera said, her voice cracking. She's really awake. Ray smiled. Tough kid. The moment didn't last. A light flickered behind them, red, scanning beam. They've found the building, Ray said. They crawled faster. The tunnel opened into a storage area, empty and full of metal crates. Ray checked the map in his visor. One more sector to cross. Then, maybe the ship, maybe escape, maybe a future. They paused for breath. Thera leaned against a crate, eyes closed. Her chest rose and fell with slow, tired breaths. Ray sat across from her, holding the baby, now calm. But alert, he looked down. You don't belong to one side, he whispered to the child. Not theirs, not mine. You belong to something better. Thera opened her eyes. What did you say? Ray met her gaze. She's a bridge, he said. Between two worlds. Then we must protect her, Thera said, her voice steady. Ray nodded, no matter what. Outside, the sound of boots on concrete echoed closer. The human army was near. Ray stood, holding the baby tight. She's not just between worlds, he said. She's between war and peace. And he was ready to fight for the right one. Sometimes saving a life means losing everything else. Not because it's wrong, but because it's right. And right can be dangerous in a world built on orders. Ray knew that now. He had crossed a line. Not by pulling the trigger, but by not pulling it, by choosing mercy over mission. A baby over a badge. A mother over medals. And now they were coming for him. They had barely made it across the blast zone. The ground was cracked. The sky above was red with smoke. Thera limped behind Ray, holding her daughter close. The child was breathing, small. Eyes half open now, growing stronger. Ahead, they saw it. The ship, hidden between two collapsed towers. Rusted, old, maybe broken, but real. Ray scanned it with his visor. It might still fly. Thera held her breath. Can it take all of us? Ray didn't answer, because behind them he heard voices, human voices. His old squad, Captain Vale. Ray had trained with him, fought beside him, trusted him once. Now he heard Vale's voice through the static. Unit 722, stand down. We have you surrounded. Turn over the alien and her spawn. A child. Not baby. Spawn, like she was an insect. Like she didn't matter. Ray's hand curled into a fist. He tapped his voice calm but cold. No, a long pause. Then Vale's voice returned, sharp. This is treason, Ray. You're protecting the enemy. Ray looked at the child. In his arms, she blinked slowly. One hand reached for his armor. He whispered to her, You're not the enemy. You're the reason I remember who I am. Then he said into the I'm protecting a baby. And I don't need permission to be human. Suddenly, gunfire. Shots hit the ground near them. Drones locked in. They were not giving him a second chance. Ray turned to Thera. Get to the ship. What about you? I'll hold them off, just for a minute. Thera shook her head. We stay together. But Ray had already pulled out a signal jammer from his belt. He threw it. A bright blue flash blinded the drones just long enough for him to drag Thera and the baby behind cover. He looked at the baby, then back at the ship. Still too far. Then he made the hardest decision. He took the baby, wrapped tightly in a warm cloth, and handed her to Thera. Run, take her. Find another way. No, she said, tears filling her eyes. We need you. Ray smiled. You need to get her out. That's what matters now. Another explosion rocked the ground. They were out of time. Thera finally nodded, her voice shaking. Promise me. I do. He said, and then he stood. Up. Alone, facing his own people. Ray walked into the open, hands up, no weapon. His voice was loud, clear. I'm not your enemy. I didn't betray Earth. I remembered it. Captain Vale stepped forward, rifle raised. His eyes were cold. You think you're a hero. Ray shook his head. No, I think I just saved a life that wasn't mine to take. The soldiers hesitated. For 1 second, just one, someone lowered their gun. Ray smiled. Then he turned and ran the opposite direction, drawing the fire away from the ship. Gunshots chased him into the fog. Behind the smoke, far away. Thera reached the ship. The engines coughed, struggled, then sparked. The ship rose into the sky. Fire and dust beneath it. The baby stared out a window, her eyes wide, bright, full of light, and far below, lost in smoke and silence. Ray stood, alone, facing the only war that ever mattered. The one inside his own heart. Asterisk, not all shields are made of metal. Some are made of flesh, and choice, and love. Ray wasn't born to be a hero. He was trained to follow orders. But today, he had become something else. A shield between the child and the bullet. Between the mother and the machine. Between hope and destruction. Smoke rolled across the ruins like waves on a dead ocean. Ray stood alone in the middle of it. No helmet, no squad, no backup. Just a man with dust on his face and fire in his chest. Behind him, far in the sky. The ship climbed higher. He'd watched it take off. He'd seen the small flash of blue, the baby's eyes in the window. They were safe. Now, it was just him. The last human in the kill zone. The radio crackled. Ray, surrender. You have 5 seconds. Captain Vale's voice, cold, robotic. Like the war had taken his soul. Ray smiled. He pulled out his last 2 plasma charges and armed them. He stepped forward into the open street, boots crunching over ash and bone. No, he said. Into the air. You surrender. They came fast. 3 dropships, 6 drones. Ray counted each one as they landed like angry shadows around him. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Vale shouted. Ray raised one hand. Not to give up, but to show them something. He opened his palm. Inside it, a photo, old, wrinkled, nearly faded. A little girl with dark hair, smiling, holding a stuffed bear. My sister, Ray said. She died the day Earth fell. Fire took her. Your point? Vale growled. Ray's voice grew louder. Stronger. She never got to run. Never got a ship. Never got saved. That alien baby did. He looked straight into the eyes of his old. Captain, I couldn't save my sister, so I saved someone else's. The first shot hit the ground near his foot. A warning. Ray didn't move. The second shot hit his arm, burning through cloth and flesh. He dropped to one knee but kept talking. That baby will grow up remembering who helped her, not who hated her. The third shot hit his shoulder. Ray fell. Smoke curled around him like a slow wave. His body shook. He bled, but he smiled. Because he had done it. The ship was gone. The baby was safe. That was all that mattered. Then, silence. No more shots. Number? Footsteps, no shouts, just the wind, and one human, still breathing. Captain Vale stood over him now. He stared down at Ray, bruised, bleeding, broken. You're insane, he said. You gave up everything. For what? Ray coughed. Blood in his mouth, for someone who couldn't fight back. He whispered. Vale aimed his rifle. Ray closed his eyes, but the shot never came, because behind them, in the sky, something else appeared, a signal. The evac ship Ray had saved had just sent out a beacon. Not a distress call, a message. One line. One sentence. A human saved us. He saved her. Vale lowered his weapon. His men stared at the screen. Silence, because for the first time, they weren't sure who the enemy really was. And Ray, he just lay there, smiling, a man who broke the rules, but kept his humanity. War forgets names, but children remember. Not the sound of gunfire, not the pain of hunger, but the face that bent down, the arms that lifted them, and the voice that said, "You're safe now." Years had passed. The war was over. The fire was gone. The city rebuilt, not in steel, but in stories, and in one corner of the galaxy. On a quiet moon with green skies, a small school waited for its last guest of the day. Children sat in a half-circle, bright-eyed and curious. At the front stood a young girl, not fully human, not fully alien. Her skin was lavender, her eyes soft blue, her hands four-fingered. But her voice, it was strong. My name, she said, was given to me by a human. The room went quiet. I don't know much about him. Only what my mother told me, and what my heart remembers. She held up a silver badge, old, scratched, but still shining. A soft circle of light reflected off it. His name was Ray. The children leaned closer. Was he your father? One boy asked. The girl smiled. No, he was a soldier. He was supposed to kill us, but he didn't. Another child raised her hand. Why? The girl looked up, eyes full of something older. Then her years. Because when no one else saw me as a person, he did. She walked to the center of the room and placed the badge gently on a table. My mother says I almost died. I was just a baby. I couldn't even open my eyes. She pointed to her own chest, where a small patch of cloth was stitched. Into her dress, a faded piece of human uniform. He carried me in this. The room was silent. Not because they didn't understand, but because they did. Far away, in the museum of the Peace Colony, stood a statue. Not tall, not grand, just a simple man in armor, kneeling. Arms outstretched, holding a child wrapped in cloth at his feet. The plaque read, in the dust he chose to lift, not crush, Sergeant Ray, human. People came from across systems too. See it. But the girl who bore his name came every year. Quietly, she would touch the statue's foot, whisper something only he would understand, not in English, not in her mother's tongue, but in the language of memory. Back in the classroom, a child asked, "What did your mother name you?" The girl looked down for a second, then raised her head. "My name is Ria," she said, spelled with an E and an A. My mother changed it so it would sound like his. She smiled, because names can carry more than blood. They carry promises. Outside, 2 stars crossed the sky. One was burning bright. The other, smaller, followed behind. Like a soldier. Like a shield. Like a father who was never meant to be, but chose to be anyway.